Welcome to the OSM podcast. My name is Jay. I'm Shanda's husband. This is my testimony. It's a little different being in the hot seat. I'm usually behind the camera cheering Shanda on. But I felt this was something I needed to do. God led me to do this. This morning, I went to a meeting there's a rehab that I go to, and I help out with a program that we run there. And I was trying to think of what to say in my testimony today. I was going over in my head what I should say, what I shouldn't say. I prayed to God to reveal to me exactly what I needed to share, and my prayer was answered. It's funny, that happens a lot lately. But somebody at the meeting had said something that I know was directly from God because it answered my question completely. He was talking about love and how people say love is a universal language. And he says that he feels that pain is actually the universal language because not everybody knows love. Not everybody has received love. And but everybody can relate to pain. And if you don't share your pain with other people, you're robbing them of an experience, of a point of relation. And that gave me my answer because there was things I was going to omit, and I think I have my answer as far as sharing truthfully and honestly the things that I went through. This isn't for other people as far as people in my life. This is for people in addiction that need to hear this, people that are in pain and have gone through the things that I've gone through. I never thought I'd be doing a testimony like this. I'm coming up on 2 years now, 2 years of sobriety, and I never thought I would get this. So I feel I owe it to everyone else. I feel like God has put me in a spot now where I can tell people that this is my experience and this is what worked for me, and it did work. I never really believed people when they said, if it happened for me, it can happen for you. It was like, okay, it never really sunk in. I thought I was different. I always thought it's not, it works for them. That's great. I wish it would work for me, but I don't think it's in the cards for me. But I know that's wrong now. I know that's not true. So this is my story. I guess the only place to start would be the beginning. I was born a military baby. I was born on Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. My father and my grandfather were also stationed there in Camp Lejeune. I think my father was born in Camp Lejeune, and my grandmother tells me that we were delivered by the same doctor. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but yeah, the first years of my life I don't remember, but my mom and my dad met in the military. They were both Marines. My mom is Native American and Seneca from upstate New York, and my father is he's from Texas. He grew up in the Bible Belt, the Southern Baptist, and you couldn't ask for two more conflicting or different worlds to meet, the cowboy and the Indian. So I came from that, and I was there until I was 3 years old, and my mom and my dad went their separate ways. They got divorced, and I went back up to New York with my mother, and I grew up on the Cattaraugus Indian Reservation, and there's actually two reservations, Cattaraugus and Allegheny. But growing up there, my earliest memories was of, like, I'd say, conflict. I didn't exactly fit in with my cousins and all the natives because I was half white. I got along, but I didn't exactly feel like I was completely like something was different. And when I was in school, the white kids, I didn't necessarily fit in completely with them either because I was, half Native. So from the very start, um, I didn't know where my place was. Um, yeah, I always felt a little different, set aside, set apart from everyone else. Um, Also, my earliest memories, um, I was a very rambunctious kid, to say the least. I used to get in fights on the school bus. I remember vividly the kids put me on the back seat of the bus, and I was on one side, and they'd always put another kid on the other side. And when the bus started, we would go and we'd fight. And I don't think I ever lost a fight. I was a very crazy little kid, and I actually remember one time I punched a cousin of mine who's quite a bit bigger than me, and the bus driver gave him a napkin to wipe his blood, and my cousin gave it to me, and I came off the bus running to my mom. I got his blood rag. I got his blood rag. Um, she remembers that. So yeah, I don't know if that was anger or just being rambunctious or what, but it kind of set the tone, for what was to come. Um, Also, when my mom came back up, um, she started another relationship, um, and so I gained a stepfather. Um, from my earliest memories, my stepfather and I kind of butted heads. I don't know if that's just a lot of me being rebellious, or I think he was a lot younger. I say a lot younger, but he was a little bit younger than my mother, so he was new to being a stepfather. Right out of high school, probably didn't know how to take care of a kid. Um, so I just remember a lot of conflict, a lot of not belonging as a little kid, and I growing up being home. Like if you would ask me what a home is, usually people will say home is a safe place. It couldn't be further from the truth for me. Home, I did not want to be home. When I was home, I felt a lot of ridicule. I felt a lot of emotional um, things going on, a little emotional torment, and physical, um, torment was happening. And so I remember my stomach being in knots on the bus on the ride home because I just had so much anxiety about going home. That's the last place I wanted to be. Um, it wasn't long before I started venturing down the road, and at the end of the road there was a lacrosse box. And if anyone's ever grown up on the reservation, they know that lacrosse it's just a way of life. For any boy growing up, you play lacrosse. Um, so going to that box wasn't just for recreation. It was an escape for me. And on the reservation where we grew up, it was not exactly. There's no neighborhood watch. There's no. It's a little bit of a rough spot. And I started hanging out with the older kids, and they were dabbling in things. Um, they were smoking and drinking, and curiosity got me, and just hanging out with those people. I started dabbling in some of those things, and I remember when I first started to do that, I remember feeling like it was for the first time I felt, I wouldn't say ecstasy, but I felt good. I didn't feel anxiety. I didn't feel all this pressure. I didn't feel like I didn't fit in. I was part of the group, and it made me feel euphoric. And from an early age, that was my escape. That was where I took refuge. Um, I didn't see anything wrong with it as a kid. I didn't really know any better. Um, of course, when you're in school, you hear like there was Dare, um, that kind of stuff, and I hadn't been like a full fledged, into those things. I, dabbled here and there, so I knew it was wrong, but um, the good outweighed the bad. Um, so going into junior high um, and into high school, things progressed. I started hanging out with a cousin of mine in a place called Allegheny Reservation is the other res. And I started spending more time there than I would spend in my neighborhood. And I quickly became friends with a lot of people who felt the same way I did. As kids, I was hanging out with kids that like to smoke and kids that like to drink. And it became something I looked forward to, something I planned for um, every weekend. I couldn't wait for the weekend. Um, I was also into sports from a young age. I played lacrosse from the time I don't know, 5, 6 years old, and I got into wrestling. And during wrestling, there was boxing. We did boxing. There was a boxing season that we did. I played football. So I played sports and I partied, and that was what life was all about. So fast forward to, I'd say, age 14, 15, I'm becoming a lot more rebellious. Um, and my stepfather, there was a time that came that I just became a little too much to handle, I would say, with my mom and my stepfather. I um, would not come home certain nights. I think they tried to do their best. I was very stubborn. I had my own way of doing things. And as I got older and bigger, I just rebelled. Um, in the meantime, I was going to see my dad every summer. I would spend 6 weeks out of the summer with my dad, and also that was a great experience for me. When I was there, my dad, took me to church. I was required to go to church. I enjoyed it, but I didn't really understand. I don't think the religiousness of it, or I kind of went because that was what you were supposed to do. I really valued my dad's opinion and the way he raised me. I respected him. He was very strict, but I felt it was out of love. And I ended up moving to Texas my 10th grade year. And when I moved there, my bad habits followed me. I ended up finding kids that were into the same things I was. They had um, the same extracurricular activities that I was engaging in, and that was the first time I actually had brought part of my life from New York down to Texas. Um, I think in my dad's eyes, I could do no wrong, and I felt like I had a split because I felt like I lived a certain way when I was in Texas, but when I came back to New York, it was a completely different way of life. Um, so when I did my 10th grade year in Texas, I started smoking again, and my dad ended up um, finding out that I had been smoking, and man, he didn't he didn't agree with that, and he ended up taking me to the police station, and it was kind of a scared straight tactic, which did scare me, but it didn't really take for very long. After my 10th grade year there, um, I can't remember what the reason was. I think my dad had kind of, you know, um, had his fill, and also I felt I kind of had ruined relationships there. I moved back to New York for my 11th grade year, and just got back into the way things were. So the partying didn't stop. It started, going full force. And another thing, I got into a relationship. This kind of formed me a little bit. It was my first serious relationship, and yeah, so for the first time, it was like everyone has like their first love, and for me, that's what that was. And I really let my guard down. I don't think I knew any better. I trusted. I had no walls up, and I really opened up my heart to somebody. And yeah, that's dangerous as a kid, as a young kid. Um, Things didn't go so well, and my heart was broken. And I think that was a turning point for me as far as what's going to shape me for my character in relationships after that. Um, yeah, so I think after that, I became more hardened, more cold, more angry, and um, relationships just didn't have the value that I thought that they had because of how things went with that. Um, I started dabbling in other things my senior year of high school. Went just from smoking to snorting things. I don't know what I can say on YouTube, but yeah, it was. It really took on a life of its own. I started to sell things, and I had a vehicle. I had a truck my senior year, and my dad had given me the truck, and I was so grateful for that truck. But I didn't earn it. It was a gift, and he was really trying to help me out, which he did. And I think in a different environment, it would have turned out differently. But with the environment I was in, I ended up wrecking that truck after just a few months. I rolled it over. It caught on fire, and there was two people that were in the car with me. Everyone was okay, but I had flipped the truck over, and my driver's side door was straight up, and I ended up. I don't remember flipping it, but I remember coming to, and the windshield was just all flames, and I realized I had to get out of here. I had to get out, and I opened the top door. It fell down, hit me in the ear. My ear um, was all black and blue for a few days. But then I got the girl out that was with us, and there was a friend of mine that was in the back, and I think his head broke the window in the back, but he was okay. We all got out, and yeah, that wasn't. If you'd think that would be a wake up call for me, I was. I felt bad, of course, but it didn't last very long. I don't know if that's because of my age or I'm not really sure, but I missed that truck. That was a nice truck. It didn't deter me. Um, I ended up finding a girlfriend who was into the same things I was, and yeah, so I was selling things. I was ingesting everything I could at that time, and it was just it was not looking good. I knew I had a problem. Probably from the time I got out of high school, I knew that things were spinning out of control. Um, so after high school, let me see. There was some time that went by. I ended up finally going to. I was just smoking weed and not doing much, and I talked to my dad, and he asked me to come down to Texas, and he told me, if you can get down here, if you can go to college here, I can help you out with a car, and I knew at that point that had I grew up in Texas things might have been a little differently, or what it might have turned out a little differently for me. Um, and I don't put any like blame on my mom or my stepdad or anybody like that. It was just something I created. It was a monster I created in the environment I was in. It's all I knew, and luckily I had um, that experience with my dad in Texas, where I did have like a bit of a split. Like I had this life in New York and I had this life in Texas, and they were different. Um, so I took my dad up on it, and I moved to Texas. And within 2 weeks, he had helped me out to get a car. Um, I found an apartment. I got a job right away, and I enrolled in college. And I did all that within 2 weeks, which is my dad was pretty proud of me. Um, he also said when I was there that his house was too small for two grown men. So I knew I had to get out, but I wanted to. I had this independent spirit. I think always. I wasn't the type that was going to live with my parents my whole life, or for um, any longer than necessary. Um, so yeah, I had my own apartment. I was going to school. I was working, and I needed friends, so I called up the friends that I had in 10th grade, and the drinking and the smoking started again. And when you're that age, you think that you know everything, and because I had the car and the like, I got into college, I got the car, I I got the job, and it was just all. I just had this ego of like, I did this, I'm successful, I got this, and I didn't have this. Um, my 20s, I started racking up DWIs. Um, yeah, that was a pattern. I think every 2 years for like 10 years, I got DWIs. Um, I don't know why I didn't learn. When I was sober, I mean, I could tell you every reason in the world why what I did was horrible and why you should never do that. But once I started drinking, none of that. I was looking for the keys. My inhibitions, everything was out the window. I turned into a different person. Um, Looking back now on some of the accidents I had and the DWIs, um, one of the ones I was driving and I was looking at my phone and I ended up hitting a pole that was in the middle of somebody's yard in broad daylight. And I hit it in reverse and I took off and went to a friend's house, and the cops ended up catching up with me. Um, Thinking back, what if a little kid was playing in the yard? What if that wasn't a pole? What if it was a playset, or you know, there's so many things that could have happened that didn't, and it's now I know it's by God's grace that didn't happen. I could be in prison right now for killing somebody and not even remember doing it. Um, to say I had a problem is an understatement. Um, I just didn't see it then. Um, so let me get back into. I ended up getting in a relationship with my ex from high school, and she moved with me down to Texas, and we started a relationship. That was the relationship that kind of broke me in high school, and like I said, from that point on, I shouldn't have been in relationships. I didn't know how to be a good partner. Her and I were just young, and we felt we were in love and crazy about each other. I think it was an infatuation we had. Um, but we were playing house before you know it. We're having a baby. Uh, So at that point, I knew that, well, I'm going to be a dad, and I'm going to do this right. I'm going to get married, and I'm going to straighten up. I'm going to get a good job, and I'm going to be a responsible adult. Um, but it was on my terms. um, once we had our firstborn, we decided to move back to New York because we felt we would have more help. My mom and her mom and everybody was in New York. Everyone that we knew was there. So we moved back to New York, and the first thing I did was I was looking for a job. I ended up finding a very good job for my age, and I think at the time, this was in 2005, I was making like a little over $20 an hour at the casino. Um, so I was making really good money, paying the bills, and we had a new baby. We ended up getting a place in Eden, New York, which was like an hour, a little over an hour from my job, which was in Niagara Falls. And so I was driving back and forth, and I was working night shift. Um, I was still drinking, but not as much. I toned it down because it was hard to, you know, drink on third shift the way I was. I would go to work, get off at 6 in the morning, and just want to go to bed. But I was still drinking. And I remember one night I was supposed to go into work, and I think somebody called in, or somebody was picking up a shift. Something happened where I didn't have to come in that night, and I didn't tell my girlfriend that at the time. Just I just acted like I was going to go to work, but my plan was to go to the bar and go drink. Um, Now, when I went to go drink, I went to drink. It wasn't for any other reason. And I didn't learn my lesson about drinking and driving. So I left like I was going for work, and I ended up at a bar in Salamanca, New York. And that's the last thing I remember was sitting there drinking. And the next thing I remember um, was a police officer knocking on my window, and I was in the car, and I look over and I have a full beer can in the cup holder, and on the passenger seat is a full case of beer. Now I have no idea where this came from. The last thing I remember, I was at the bar in Salamanca, and so I roll my window down, and the officer says, "Sir, do you know where you are right now?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm in my car. I'm in Salamanca." He said, "No, you're in Arcade or Amherst, I think it was. You're by the airport, which is like an hour and a half from where I thought I was, and it's all early hours of the morning. I don't even know what time, and I'm sitting at a red light, just idling. Like I didn't even have it in park, and I was running on fumes. Um, yeah, I got a DWI there. Yeah, I same thing. Could have ran somebody over. I would never have known it. Yeah, that was sobering for a little bit. Um, my drinking went on like this. Um, I ended up getting married um, to the woman that I had my firstborn with. We ended up having 3 kids. Um, I got married. I transferred from Niagara Falls to Salamanca, which was my stomping grounds, my partying grounds, and I was right at home. Um, I worked a mile from my job, so it was no problem getting there. I could be partying all night, and I could still get there and do my job. Um, the relationship I had, we ended up getting married, and we were both partying, and we were both not ready to be a married couple and raise kids. Um, for a long time, I held a lot of anger and resentments and pointing my finger at her for what she did. But through recovery and sobering up and praying about it a lot. I played a huge part in that. I can't point my finger at anybody but myself. Um, I had to start looking at myself at some point and realizing what I had done, what my part in things were. Um, and I can't control any factors, but the only thing I can control is me. And I never did a really good job at controlling me. Um, so after a while of doing that, fighting with my ex, we fought constantly, and she would cheat, I would cheat, drinking. It was chaos. I think it was that DWI, that last one I talked about, where I needed to go to rehab. Um, and that was scary for me. I had a very good job. I had a house. I had 3 cars. I was paying all the bills. On paper, I felt like I was very successful for my age, especially. Um, Married, 3 kids, cars, house. It was all great. But I kept getting in trouble. So I went to rehab. I went to a rehab that was a native-based rehab in upstate New York. It was on the Mohawk Reservation. It's called Partridge House, and wow, that was a great experience. It was culturally based, and I didn't have much spirituality. I mean, I grew up going to Longhouse, doing ceremonies, but I don't think I really ever understood a lot about it. Everything was spoken in Seneca, and also with church. Um, I went because that's what I was supposed to do, and I went, and I believed in God or the Creator, one of the two. I didn't know who was what or what was who, and so when I went to this native based rehab, it really gave me some direction. And one of the things that they had me do there was I had to write out my story and all the things I had gone through up till that point. And there was a lot of pain in there. There was a lot of things in my childhood that was unresolved. Um, a lot of things I was holding on to because in my 20s, I failed to mention, when I was doing this drinking and partying and going to bars, there was a lot of fights, a lot of fighting. I was a very angry person, and it came out when I drank. Um, so when I went to this rehab, that's when I really started to put a finger on where this anger was coming from. Um, there was a great counselor there. I don't know what her name is. I can't remember, but I wish I could meet her again. She had me write this down, and it was a whole notebook full of pain and just bringing up emotions and things that I hadn't thought of in forever, or if I'd ever even thought of them. And I wrote this down. It took me like a week, and throughout that week, my emotions were up and down because I wasn't masking it with anything. That was another thing, that the drugs and the alcohol masked emotions. I didn't have to feel anything. Um, if I felt anything, I would drown it. So in this rehab, I learned how to start feeling things again. Once I wrote this, it was about 100 pages. She told me to come outside with it, and we started a fire. And she said, "Now you're gonna burn this." And I remember feeling like what? Like, it took me a week to do this, and it was like 100 pages. I've never written anything like that, not that long, and it was a lot of things that went into it. I was proud of the fact that I did it, and she told me just to throw it in the fire. And she said that there's a reason I'm having you do this. When you throw this into the fire, she said, I want you to imagine the Creator, and you're giving this to him. This is something that you took out of you, and you placed it on this paper, and now it's here. And what are you going to do with this? You're going to get rid of it. She said, so when the flames burn these pages and burn those words, you're letting it go, and it's going up to the Creator, and that smoke is going up to him. And it made sense to me. Maybe there's something to this. So I did that. I threw it in the fire and I burned it, and it felt good. It was something spiritual. I felt like I was letting something go. So I was like, great, that's great. I did it. Now I'm healed. And then there was a big rock at my feet, and she said, I want you to pick this rock up, and I want you to slam it into the ground, and I want you to scream. I was like, scream, okay, like yell. She said, yeah. If you say so. So I picked it up and I threw it on the ground. It was like, like, half-hearted, and I felt stupid doing it. And so she said, pick it up and do it again. So I, okay, did it again. And I noticed her face was just completely stoic. And it was just quiet. It was just me and her. And she said, pick it up and do it again. 3-4 times, it was something was hitting me. She was cutting me right to the core. And I started taking this serious, and I slammed it, and I screamed, and I yelled, and she was crying. She could feel the pain, and all that pain. It was like the words that had gone up did something, but I think it just like opened the top, and now I was pouring it all out, and I did, and I poured it out, and she was crying, and I was crying. I mean, like snot nose, ugly crying, and we hugged, and from that point on, I let that go. All the things of my childhood, the mental abuse, the physical things, everything I went through as a child that I was holding on, that was giving me pain, the anger that I was hanging on to, that I just wouldn't let go of. I let it go. I truly let it go. Now, that's not to say I was healed, because my substance abuse continued, but that part of me was. That really worked. So I left that rehab in really good shape. I knew that there was a better way to life, and that I didn't have to drink to fill a void, to fill a hole. Now, when I got out of rehab, my ex at the time, or my ex, I was married to her at the time, was very proud of me, but I know the drinking continued on her part, and I remember one conversation distinctly. She wanted to go out and was kind of asking my permission. I was sober, and I wanted to stay sober, and I told her I couldn't give her permission. Like, who am I to say you can or you can't? I said, you can go if you want. I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you what I will do if you do, if that makes any sense. I can only decide for me what will happen. I told her, if you do go out, that this isn't going to work. Our relationship isn't going to work, because it's going to bring me closer to drinking. I was making a stance as far as my sobriety comes first. So, needless to say, she ended up going out, and I stuck by it. I think we separated after that for a little bit, and anyways, our relationship ended after that. I caught her doing certain things, and I ended up filing for divorce. Now, I'm not saying that this is all her fault and all that, because it's not. I did my share of things, but where I was at in my journey, and that point was, I was in a good spot, and I wanted to stay sober, and I wanted to do the right thing. And our relationship was so toxic. I think we stayed together because of the kids. That was the point. We wanted to not have a broken home and stay together for the kids. And I came to the realization that the kids would be better if if we were split and they got the best of me and the best of her, we didn't have to be together, because if we were, it was not good for the kids. So I ended up filing for divorce, and I went through with it, and it was hard. It was the best thing to do for both of us. Um, it was extremely hard. My sobriety did not last. Now, I'd love to say that I cleaned myself up and then that was it from there, but no, it wasn't. Um, Now, I had the kids in the beginning. I had the house, I had the kids. Um, and when I didn't have them, the drinking style, I don't remember exactly how it started, but I'm sure it was just, I'll go out one time turned into two, and then it turned into the weekends. And before I knew it, um, I didn't have the kids with me that weekend, but it was my free time, and I ended up getting a DWI. It's the story of my life, DWI. So when I did, I ended up getting papers while I was in jail, emergency custody. My ex had she was in another relationship with somebody, and they ended up getting married. I don't know if they were married at the time or not, but they went for emergency custody because I was in jail for DWI, and they were granted that. We ended up going to court, and it wasn't looking good for me. Being on my own, just got a DWI. Um, I, I I ended up losing custody, and I got weekends, or every other weekend is what I got. And right around that time when we got divorced, also I forgot to tell you, I was that was part of probably the reason I was sober too. Is I ended up getting really sick. Um, I had ulcerative colitis. My large intestine was completely ulcerated from top to bottom. I lost tons of weight, and I ended up having to have a major surgery, and they took out my entire large intestine. I had a colostomy for like 6 months while that healed, and then they reversed that. Um, I have a scar all the way down. Um, it was a pretty intensive surgery, and I wasn't able to work after that. I ended up applying for disability, and I was granted that. And I think because I was had such a good job when I applied, I ended up getting a decent um, payment. And so from that point on, lost the kids. I kind of went into a tailspin. My kids, even though I was full blown into addiction, were everything to me. They meant everything to me. I have a very close bond with my kids. Um, Not saying I'm father of the year by any means, but I love my kids, and I would do anything for them. Um, that crushed me once I lost the custody and had them on the weekends. Every other weekend, I got them like 4 days. Went from having them all the time to 4 days a month, and yeah, things just really took off from there. Um, yeah, I was drinking all the time. I was getting into things, and my that's basically my entire 20s was my life. So the tailspin started to happen after I lost my kids. Now I was getting them, and I'm not driving at this point because my license is long gone. One thing I'd like to say about that is it's been a tough journey not being able to drive, and for a while I take it hard because I can't take my kids anywhere. I can't do things like that, and it feels like I'm a little kid that can't, has to depend on people for rides. But I put myself in that situation, and I have no one else to blame but myself. And by the grace of God, I didn't kill someone else or kill myself. It's a miracle that I did all that and didn't kill anyone. So, I mean, I would still like to get my license back, still in the process of applying for that, and I may never get it back. But that's just, you reap what you sow. You put seeds out and they grow into that, and that's because of my past, because of the choices I've made. That's my reality. So, with that being said, I my 20s were all drinking. It was all about the drinking and the partying, and I was still functioning to a degree. When I had my kids, I was there for them and taking them to their sporting events and things like that. But my 30s, I ended up going back to college actually. Right around my late 20s, early 30s, I went back to college, and I was going to get my degree in psychology. I ended up getting a associate's degree for psychology, and then I ended up going to St. Bonaventure, and I got on the lacrosse team at like 29 years old, and I played lacrosse for St. Bonaventure. Things were really rolling for me at that point. I had gotten sober before I started college. Actually, I started college because I was sober, and I was sober for, I don't know how long I was sober for, quite a while. I'd say like a year and a half or so, something like that. Um, I'm sorry, I got my license back and I was driving because I was going to college, and things were really rolling. I hit St. Bonaventure, and wouldn't you know it, started drinking again. I laugh now, but it's not funny. It's kind of tragic. I started drinking again and partying with, college people and lacrosse teammates, and I was living the college life that I never got, in my mind. I had kids from a very early age. I was never able to live this out, so I was doing that, and yeah, I ended up getting my last DWI. This would make number 5, um, while I was going to school there, and I was so smart back then. I was so smart. I remember driving the truck and I turned my lights off at night because in my mind, I thought if I turn my lights off, nobody can see me. Well, they did see me, and they did pull me over, and that was my last one. I went to rehab after that once again, and that was my longest stint of sobriety. I had like a year and a half, and I got into really good shape. I was working out every day. I was doing meetings, and I was doing the help groups, and things were really going good. I had gone back to that native rehab, the Mohawk one, the Partridge House, and I got really involved spiritually. I was doing sweat lodges, um, and I was really connecting spiritually to the Creator. Um, and I ended up living in Oneida for 6 months, which is another Indian reservation. And while I was there, I was just working out. I was doing cultural things, going to meetings, and I was really doing well. But after that time was up, they talk about how you take a plant that's dying and you uproot it and you put it into this good soil and you water it and you give it sunlight and you take care of it and it flourishes. It becomes alive. That's what happened to me. I became alive and I was really flourishing. I felt like I was the best I had ever been at that point, which I was, mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally. But then you take that same plant and you uproot it again and you put it back in that old dying soil and you cover it up, and you take the sunlight away, and it doesn't take long that beautiful plant starts to wilt, and that is what happened to me. I came back to my house in Salamanca, and started out just every time I relapsed, somebody would ask, "What happened? What? Why?" And the answer was always the same: I just stopped going to meetings. Um, you know, recovery, you can't do it on your own. You can't do anything like that on your own. You need help. And for me, at the time, meetings um, was what I needed. I quit going to meetings and started taking my will back into my own hands. And it just started out with one drink, and it just went from there. If you're anything like I am, you know what I'm talking about. I didn't drink very long in my 30s. The drinking, I got into a relationship. Um, well, actually, I was drinking. I got into a relationship with somebody, and it was a toxic relationship. Um, Very toxic. There was some physical abuse that was going on towards me, and it's weird because I'd never been I was never on the giving end, but I was never on the receiving end of physical. So as a man, who you were gonna go to the cops and tell them that my girlfriend's beating me up? It was weird. So I was stuck in a toxic relationship for quite a while. And I've come to realize that we accept the love that we feel we deserve. I had no self-esteem. Um, I stayed in, a lot of people would say, why would you stay in that? It's because I didn't have any self-esteem. I felt that's what I was worth. Um, so you accept the love you feel you deserve. And I was stuck in that. We ended up having a child together because what's going to save this relationship? Let's have a baby. That's that's what a lot of people do. That's what I did, and I wouldn't take back my son for anything. Um, so he's my fourth child. Um, but as far as the relationship and toxicity, that was going, um, that was going downhill. I wasn't going anywhere. I got out of that relationship and jumped into another one, and that relationship took me to places I never thought I would go, as far as drugs. I started getting into some hard things. I was never into the downers. I was into the stimulants, things that would get you up, and yeah, I found a different drug that replaced everything, and before I knew it, I was hooked. And I remember a couple months into it, it started out as something that I would just do here and there, and then I was buying it, but I was only buying a little bit. And then I remember distinctly riding down the road with the person I was with at that time, and just it hit me. Like I said, I'm hooked. Like this has its hooks in me. I can't not do this. Like I'm doing this all the time. And I remember it being scary because it's one of the most addictive drugs there is, and I realized right then it had me. My drinking fell by the wayside. When I would drink, if I did drink, I would drink one beer, not even finish it maybe. The drug I was doing really, it had my attention completely. And I started smoking it and losing weight and getting delirious, having all these different voices and everything that they say it brings, it did. Um, and I couldn't stop. I felt like Superman when I was on this drug. I looked in the mirror and I was probably 150 pounds, but I felt like Superman. I hadn't eaten in in a week or two, and I needed this. I depended on this. It became everything to me. Um, I put it on top of everything, including my kids, which I'm not proud to say. I still was. I still would get my kids every other weekend, but I would have them over at my grandmother's house because she lived closer to them than I did, and I would stay with them. And I was there, but physically, but mentally, no, I was not. Everybody could tell something was off with me. They couldn't put their finger on what, but they knew I was doing something, and I had everybody fooled in my head. Little did I know, everybody knew. And I was stuck in this cycle of using, and I didn't know how to get out of it. My mental health was declining. I was becoming very paranoid over everything, and this went on for years. And it's crazy how time passes. I was doing this. I was getting into it. Next thing I know, 3 years, 4 years had gone by, and it was always one of those things where, well, actually, all of my addiction was always I'll stop when they start school. I'll stop when they hit third grade. I'll stop when they hit 10 years old. I'll stop when they're teenagers. I'll stop, and it just never did. And I hate that, but that's what addiction does. That's what drugs do. They take your life. They take your time, and time is the most precious thing we have. And it took a lot of mine. There was rehab here and there when I was in that state. I had a little, stunts of sobriety, but I just couldn't get away from this thing. At this point in my life, it stopped being fun. Even when I was struggling, some of it I looked forward to. It was fun, I would have a good time in my mind. But the last 4 years or so, I hated every second of it. I was not using because I wanted to have a good time. I was using because I needed to function. I couldn't function unless I was using these drugs. If I didn't have them, I was no good. I was in bed, depression beyond belief. It was a struggle to tie my shoes, to go to the bathroom, to get up. It just, I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't brushing my teeth. I wasn't taking showers. I wasn't, just basic things that a human being does. I couldn't do. I felt like an animal, like a rodent in my house. Some very dark times. And along the way, as I said, I started doing things that I never thought I would do. I wasn't smoking it anymore. I was actually using IVs, shooting. And these are things I never, ever in a million years, I will never do that. Never, and drugs and addiction will take you there. I've learned that addiction wants you dead. Addiction does not want you alive. And it will take you down until it accomplishes its goal, which is death. So it was a lot of struggling, a lot of me hating myself. Towards the end, I hated myself, and I don't use that word very often, but I did. I despised myself. Looking in the mirror, just hating what I saw. Trying to put on the best face I could when I had my kids, but I was going down, and the bottom was not very far. So this last time I ended up going to rehab. I went 3 times in 1 year. um, Now, anyone who's ever been to rehab knows how hard it is to get there. You have to admit defeat, that you don't have this and that you can't do it. That's really hard for anyone. Um, but to have to do it 3 times in 1 year, telling my kids after I got out that things are going to change, I feel great. I'm going to get better. I'm going to get on track and mean it. I could have taken a lie detector test and passed because I was going to get it this time, only to not last very long and do it again and be stuck in that cycle again. And then have to look at them in the face and say, sorry, Dad doesn't have this. And let them down. I did that 2 times, and it was the hardest thing I had to do was tell them I failed again. The third time I went, I had to muster up the courage to tell them I had fallen again and I failed again. And I had gotten to a spot where this was gonna end. This cycle, this addiction, this life was going to end one way or another. Now, my mentality was, I can go on for the next 20 years living like an animal and killing my body, and this thing is going to take me out. And I'm going to be stealing from family. I'm going to be letting my kids down. I'm going to become a disappointment for the next 20 years, and it's going to get worse and worse. Or I could end this now. I could take myself out now. And yeah, it's going to be horrible, and my kids and my family are going to be sad. And it's going to be a horrible thing, but at least they'll remember me with dignity. A little, whatever dignity I have left, they'll at least remember me like that and not the way it's going to be. So it was either that, taking myself out, or go to rehab again and just doing whatever they tell me to do, giving up completely. Now, I felt I've done that in the past, but I don't know how surrendered I really was because I ended up taking my will back. So these are some pretty high stakes. It's either my life or I get better. I went into this rehab for the last time because it was going to be my last time. It was my last shot. Disheveled, long hair. And I wasn't growing my hair as a fashion statement. I was growing my hair because I couldn't afford a haircut because everything was going, in my body. It was a rough one. I was just completely defeated. And I remember walking into it this time thinking about spirituality. And I felt like that was purpose. So spirituality meant to me was purpose. And I had none. I had no purpose at all. I was just existing to use. That was no life at all. It wasn't a way to live. It was a way to die. So my arms were wide open when I came into this place this last time, and I did everything they said to do, which is what they said from the beginning, which is funny at the meetings. Just you have to give up and just do what you're told. It's simple. I didn't realize how simple it was. I just had to do what they told me. There's what they say now. I've never met anyone too stupid to get this program, but I've met a lot of people that are too smart, and that was me. I complicated everything. I made this recovery simple. I started doing what they told me. I got a sponsor right from the beginning. And when I was in the rehab, I started leading the groups because I had gone so many times. I knew what this was about. I knew what recovery was about. I could recite steps and what you should do, and I had a psychology degree. I knew the format. I knew what you should do, but I didn't know what I should do. Um, so I was completely humbled. Um, Completely humbled. I was dirty and undernourished. I started eating. I started taking showers again. I started listening. I started reading. I started sharing my experiences. I started listening instead of waiting for my turn to talk. And before I knew it, I was looking in the mirror and I wasn't completely disgusted. Somewhere in there, I started to like the person I saw in the mirror again, or at least have empathy for them. And that was a big step. And things just started getting better and better. And I got this mentality that my dad told me a long time ago when I was a kid, that our life is made of choices. You have a choice in everything you do, and if you choose this one, this is gonna go that way. If you choose the bad one, you're gonna go that way. And that always stuck with me. And so in my head, I was like, I just need to choose to do the right thing. Whatever, I know what's right and wrong. We all do. This is my mentality. So whatever I feel is right, I'm gonna do. Little did I know that right thing that I hear is a conscience, is God inside of me. That God has a plan, and it's not bad things. That's the darkness is not of God. The light is. So this was my baby steps towards spirituality and God, and realizing that I just need to follow the good things that are laid out for me, and stop making my own reality. Stop driving. There's another thing I heard before. It was a preacher, I can't remember, Father Martin. He always said, you can. He said they always say just jump in the, or just when you're in the driver's seat, just hand the wheel over to Jesus or to God. And he said, take your hands off the steering wheel. He said, if you do, you're going to crash. He said, you still have to steer the car. You still have to do things, but God gives you the map. And yeah, so feeling better in rehab, things are clicking, but it's done this before. Something still needed something, because I didn't want to get out of this place and go right back into the same old thing. Somebody ended up coming into the rehab that was, he was there. So I'd gone 3 times in 1 year. The first time I went in, he was coming in just as I was going out. And I said some things to him because I was in a really good headspace. And he looked, I wasn't sure if this guy was going to get it. But I remembered him. And this third time I came in, he came in and he had a year. And he looked good. He was 60-something years old, and he was telling me, he said, yeah, I've been clean and sober for a little over a year now. And I'm just starting to live my life. He said, I'm 60-something years old, and I'm canoeing, I'm kayaking, I'm hanging out with friends, I'm doing good things, going to meetings. He's like, I'm living my life. I'm talking to people that I thought I would never talk to again, that wrote me off. And he said, man, I wasted so much time. I just wasted it. All this drinking and all this, I was just wasting life. And he said, I'm finally living it. Something clicked when I saw him. Something, they always say, if I can do it, you can do it. Well, this one, for some reason, this one actually, it hit me. Something clicked. And I was like, I can do this. Like seeing him do it, walk the walk, and it was working. Something showed me I could do this. I could actually do this. Wow. And it's just a switch flip that never flipped before. And from that point on, I was all in, and I had hope. Another thing that I say is I talk about like this flame inside. You have a flame inside of you. I used to think it was hope. And before I went to rehab this last time, all I had was a little ember left. My fire wasn't out, but there was a little ember of hope in there. And once I got to rehab, I started fanning that ember, and it started to become a flame again. And I felt like that was hope. I was building my fire. I started having a fire inside me, and now I realized that that wasn't just hope, that was God. I have a fire now, and it's the more I feed it, the hotter it gets, and I'm feeding it now with good things, with God. It's crazy now that I talk like this. Like people that knew me before wouldn't recognize me now. Like I'm saying the word God. I'm saying that and not cringing. I was the one that was like, there was meetings in the rehab that were Christian based, and I wouldn't go to them. I didn't want anyone preaching at me, telling me what I needed to do and shoving things in my face. I'll decide, you know. Yeah, I've actually seen the truth now, and I am where I am because of God. So 28 days of rehab. I think it was a little longer because of insurance or something. I ended up doing like 40, and I always did 28 days and out, 28 and out, 28 and out. And this time I knew I had to do long term. I had to go on after this because 28 wasn't enough for me. So I decided that I would go to another one, and I went to a 90-day one. And when I did, I had a lot more, I guess. It was like a 2-week blackout period where you can't talk to anyone, can't call anyone. But right after that, you could call people and you could go for go to meetings and things like that. And when I was in the first rehab, the 28-day one, there was a guy that came in, and an older guy that had, I don't even know how many years of recovery. Probably just as old as I am is the years of recovery he has. And he was talking, and he was staring right into my soul when he was talking. And we connected. We had this thing, and he saw something in me. I think it was desperation and drive. Like I was gonna do this. Like I was gonna get this, and he saw it. I asked him to be my sponsor. He said, "Why don't you give me a call when you get into the next place?" So that's the first person I called. As soon as I got out, I called him, and let's do this. Let's do steps. Let's do, what do? We go to meetings. We do this. We do that. Whatever we want to do, I'll do it. I had that fire. That little ember was a fire now, and I claimed it, and I was ready to go, and I felt great. So we jumped right into steps. We jumped into meetings, and I was just, things were going great. So while I was there, I don't know, things were just rolling, and I was seeing that I could be an influence on certain people. Not everyone that goes to these rehabs are there for the right reasons. You know, a lot of people are there because they have to be. You know, they walk in there with cuffs on. It's kind of it's really the last place they want to be, and unfortunately, that happens for a lot of people. I think in my early years, I did that a couple times. I had to go, but I was not there because I had to be. I was there because I needed to be, and that rubbed off on people. I noticed that, you know, that fire I had, that people could see it, and I felt something when I helped people, and it's almost like it wasn't me that was helping them. It was what had happened to me was helping them. My experience was helping them. It was an energy that was flowing from me to them. It wasn't anything I was doing. It was something that was working through me, and it just rubbed off, and they could see it. So rehab worked for me. I did a lot of work, which brings me to spirituality. Like I said, when I went into it this last time, I had no spirituality. I was spiritually bankrupt. I used to pray to the Creator, and I thought, I believed that path. But I also had one foot in the door with God and church. I know that they call it the higher power. I didn't really have a title for the higher power. I just knew that there was something that created everything, and that had a better plan than I had, because my plan got me to where I was. I always used my plan, and for once, the road that I was on, the map I was using, the plan that I had was not mine. It was this higher powers. Now, I met somebody, and they influenced me to go with them to church, and I really wanted to hang out with this person, and I was really adamant about my sobriety, and sobriety comes first. But this person was very attractive, and I wanted to hang out with them. And she said, "Well, we can hang out, but we're going to hang out at church." And I'll hang out wherever you want me to hang out. I knew a little bit about church, and so I went. I was open to it. I needed some spirituality. I'll give this a shot again. I learned a little bit about the Bible and stuff when I was going to my dad. So, yeah, let's check this out. I've said this a few times at meetings, and it's such a good analogy. Religion for me was always like a radio playing in the house, background music. There's always something playing. You never really heard what it was, but it was just background noise. And when I went into this church, I thought I was going to, struggle to keep my eyes open, which usually happens. This preacher was talking, and the way he was saying things, and the way he was relating things, and talking about the gospel. For the first time, that radio that was playing in the background, a song came on that I heard. I could hear the music. I could hear the words. And I started listening to the music that was playing. That's the best way I can describe it. I left that church, and I went there for one reason. That was to hang out with this person, and I left there realizing that there was something to this God. There was something to this this God that my dad tried to introduce me to, and my grandmother from Texas, bless her heart, always tried to get me into. All that stuff that they said, and that my grandmother said, and my dad said, started to make sense. I always thought they were religious freaks, and just all this hallelujah and all. It was kind of scary. The things that they were saying started to really make sense a little bit. I wanted to go to church from then on, to that church. That preacher explained things that I could understand. I was really getting it. I started reading the Bible, which was crazy. Read the Bible. Well, I used to read it, and I just read it because I read it because I wanted to read it, but I never got anything from it. I was just reading words on a page, and I would close it, and I don't know what I just read. Now I'm reading it, and there's stories in there. Like, there's actual, like, different books and stories and eyewitness accounts of things. I didn't know that before. I didn't know any of that. And this is actually, I'm enjoying what I'm reading. I'm getting things from it. And I'm starting to realize that these ideas I had of me making the right choice instead of the wrong choice each time, just choose the good one. I start realizing, well, that good one is things that God has laid out for you. God has a path that He wants you to go, and you're following that path. You're following God. Um, yeah, blew my mind. And then certain things would come up about like eternal life. I mean, these are things I used to think about. Um, I always knew I had people have a spirit, and coming up in the native background, we believe in spirits. Um, I always knew that there's something else inside of me that's not just my body. Like there's a spirit, I guess you would say. I don't know how to explain it, but I always felt like once I died, this thing inside would go somewhere. And I thought we all went to the same place. It just depends on if you're a good person or not. Depends on your heart. I didn't know much more than that. Um, I believed in evil. I believed bad things are real. Evil is real. I saw it firsthand. Um, the places drugs took me, the people I met, I ran into, people I encountered. Um, Evil's definitely real. So, on the flip side, if evil's real, then it's got to be a good. Um, so then I started thinking about heaven and hell, and the more I learn about the Bible and God, I realize that's real. My wife Chanda is an expert in listening to near-death experiences. I never listened to them before, but the more I listen to those, I start realizing that there's correlations between each one of these stories. Things that happen to this one happen to that one, and thousands. And there's hell experiences, and they can't all be lying. It was thousands of these stories, and it's real. It really is. It's really real. And um, yeah, so I started thinking about like my soul, like where is it going to go? And then I started thinking about like the earth, and I feel like we're like in this um, time capsule. If you think about heaven and hell, and they talk about how there's no time. It's a different realm, and there's no time, but we have time here. Um, and I feel like there's good and evil on earth, and depending on what you do while you're here depends on where your soul goes. And these are just a few things that really sparked my interest, and really got me to closer to God, and into believing in Jesus. And religion, spirituality, God, this is all things that I didn't have before this last time I got sober and clean. I tried everything there was to try up until that point, and this was the missing ingredient. I have coming up on 2 years now, and the desire to use or drink has completely lifted. I can't imagine ever going back to that life. Life is so good now. Life is great now. And it's not like it's full of all these different things that I do that make it so. It's just, even just the simple things. I don't wake up having to hustle, looking for money to get my next fix. I feel good. Um, I have great conversations with my kids. Two are in college going to Fredonia, and one's in high school. And, I wish I could be closer to them. But I have a wholesome relationship with them now, which I didn't before. When I'm there, not just physically. I'm invested in their future, in how they're doing. Um, Life is so much better. A buddy of mine I grew up with, um, when I was using and drinking, and I remember hanging out with him. This wasn't that long ago. It was a little before I went to rehab and got sober. He said something that just took me aback. I never thought of it like that before. We were trying to get him to hang out with us and go somewhere, and he just straight out said, he's like, no. He said, I love my life. He's like, I actually like my life. He's married and kids, and when he said that, it just hit me like, I don't think I can't say that. I don't know if I could ever say that. I don't think I've ever loved my life. I hated my life at that point. I really despised my life, and I looked at him, and it just made me feel like, wow, like, well, how amazing would that be to actually feel like that, to love your life? That's I think what started me on my journey this last year that I had to get better. I can wholeheartedly say now I love my life. I do. I love my life. I wouldn't trade it for anything, especially using and going down that trail again. For the first time ever, I am just happy and content with the way things are going, and I have to remember where I came from, and seeing people on the street that are digging in cigarette bins for a cigarette butt. People who haven't showered or slept in days, that are just looking for their next fix and hustling. I know that pain. I lived that pain, and I wouldn't be doing justice to anybody or myself if I didn't share my experience, because something happened, and I am where I am today because of God and because of what He's done in my life, and me just being obedient and following His instruction. I pray a lot. That was foreign to me. I never prayed. That happened in rehab. I saw somebody, a roommate, get down on his knees right in front of me, and he was on his bed and praying. He did that in the morning and did that at night. And I remember seeing that, and I wasn't thinking like, what a loser. I was like, wow, like it's humbling. Like, that's pretty cool. So I started doing that, and I didn't even know what I was praying to begin with. I just, thank you for this day, and let me have a good day. I was just giving, what was it now? I was giving thanks for the morning, thank you for waking me up and giving me a good day, and help me get through this day again, sober. And then before I went to bed, I would do it and thank Him for getting me through the day sober. And now I pray all the time. I feel like I have a relationship with God. Even little things. Should I go here? Should I go there? I'll pray about it, and I get insight. I feel it's not like a audible, you should go here. It's not like something the heavens open up, but it's a feeling. It's a spiritual thing. I'm spiritually connected to God, and I get these like intuitive things and it's not me. I know it's God. Of which direction I should go. I get convicted about things. I start to realize now where I want to do things a certain way, and then I realize that's not the way you should do it. That's God. That's God for me. You should do it this way. And I do, and I stay obedient. 2 years ago, I never would have thought that I'd have a life like I have right now. I'm married. I got married to a beautiful woman, Chanda. I think you guys know her. The one I was talking about that got me to go to church was Shanda. That's who I was talking about. Um, she really has helped me um, get on track here. Um, I wouldn't have gotten the spirituality. I wouldn't have seen God. I mean, I may have, on my own, but probably not. I don't think I would have walked into church on my own. I had to follow her in there. Um, it's funny because I didn't go to church for that. I went because I was following Shanda, but I stayed because of God. God talked to me, and I don't know if you ever heard our story, but the way things all God put us together. So many. That's another story. So many things lined up, and so many things happened that put her and I together. Things that were not coincidence. Things that are only of God. And we'll get into that another time. But yeah, Shanda is my best friend and has really helped me on my journey. And yeah, I owe it all to God, and that's what has made us start this ministry. To be honest, we've done a lot of praying, not sure which direction to go, and this one Spark ministry was just kind of given to us. A lot of different crazy signs that confirmed it and brought us to where we are right now. Yeah, so that's my testimony. I wasn't sure what I was going to say when I started this. I was nervous to begin with, and like I said, I was going to be. I wasn't sure if I was going to share everything that I did, but what that guy said earlier today really hit me. We all know pain. That's the universal language is pain. We don't all know love. We haven't all received love, and by relating with pain and sharing my pain, I'm hoping that I touch somebody, open somebody's eyes, that I plant a seed that somebody can relate and relate in that pain that I went through, and hopefully that pain will lead them to love, the love that I experience now, the love that I know is true, and the love that keeps me going. So that's my testimony, and stay tuned for some more to come. Thank you.